Hi folks, and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm here with my Mercedes ML Class W164 chassis, and I've got a front left wheel bearing which has gone bad on this vehicle. So today I've investigated options, but because we're doing this as a DIY, I've chosen to purchase a complete front left steering arm assembly with the bearing already in it off of Amazon, because that's the easiest way from my perspective, because I don't have a press or anything, so I can't press a bearing out and a new one in. So I've got this whole assembly which we're going to put on the car here today to resolve the issue with the front left wheel bearing. So let's get into it. So to start with, before we actually lift the vehicle up, what I've done is I've popped the cover off the inner part of the wheel there to reveal the nut to the drive axle. It's a 36mm socket I've put on there, and then I've used the big long bar, and I've actually got a piece of pipe on it just to extend it a little bit further, because that nut is done up with 250 Newton meters of torque, and I really felt that we'd struggle to get that undone when the vehicle was off the ground. So doing it this way, we've got the vehicle on the ground, and as you can see, we've just been able to crack that nut on the main drive axle there. So just to make our life easier, I'm going to deflate the Airmatic suspension on the front left. So we've removed the fuse for the Airmatic suspension, that's that fuse there. And then what I've done is I've come across to the front left strut, top of the strut here, and you can see I've removed the airline which goes to that front left strut. So if we just pop down here now, you can see we've actually deflated that airbag. And of course, I've also taken the front left wheel off. So the next thing we're going to do is we need to get this brake caliper off. So I'll probably just put it on time lapse. You can check out how to do a brake job on these vehicles. So we'll get that front left caliper off. We'll cut this cable tie just here, and then we'll actually hang the front left caliper up off of that arm up here. We then need to get the front left rotor off, and then we can actually start to undo everything to get the whole assembly unit off. All right, I just explained what we did on the time lapse. You can see we've taken the front caliper off and we just tied it up on the wishbone there with a cable tie so it doesn't stress the brake line at all. Next thing we've got to get is this hanger off. There's just a couple of bolts on the back, but if you've done a brake job on these vehicles, you know how to do it. So get that hanger off. And then importantly, I had to cut the cable tie to this bit of plastic which holds the brake line, but also the wheel speed sensor, and we'll be taking that out as well in a little bit there. So be careful not to damage that when you do that, folks. So with the caliper hanger off, now we've got to get the rotor off, and so you just take this screw it here with the Torx bit, and then you'll be able to knock the whole rotor off. So we've got that disc rotor off, and just to make it a little bit easier to work, and also so you can see what we're doing, just took that dust shield off. Next we'll get the wheel speed sensor off. That'll be like a E10 or something. So with everything exposed, what we'll now do is we'll get this undone, the tie rod into the steering. So we've just got a 22mm spanner onto there. One of the things you have to watch out for is if that starts spinning, you need to put like a torque bit through the top of the spanner. It's probably a T30 or something that you use then on a ratchet if need be, whilst you're undoing that. So I just used the ball joint separator and we've got that off perfectly now. Okay, so we've got the tie rod off there. Next we're gonna crack the top ball joint up here. You can see I've loosened off the nut and I've got a ball joint separator onto that. With that then out, what we'll be able to do is we'll be able to get our puller onto here and we'll be able to flex that off. So we'll be able to fold the whole steering assembly over, get that drive shaft just out, and then we'll be able to get to the lower ball joint with the socket. So let's get that top ball joint cracked now. All right, so we've got that steering assembly out now, and just to reiterate, I tried to record as much of it as I could, but to reiterate, you get the drive shaft nut off, then we got the tie rod end nut off, separated that off, and then the top ball joint. With those two off, what we're able to then do is get our 3-jaw puller onto the end of the drive shaft and wind that in, and then we're able to get that steering assembly to fold over, pop the drive shaft out of the steering assembly, and then we could move the drive shaft to one side and get on to the lower ball joint nut with a socket from the top. Once that was off, we could lift that whole assembly off. So to reinstall is actually just going to be the reverse procedure of what we've done here. So I'm just going to chuck you on time lapse and we'll get it installed. Okay, so this is interesting when this happens, that when you're running this nut up, sometimes the whole ball joint just spins. So what you've got to do is get a spanner, and what I've got here is a 13/16 spanner, and you put that on like that, and then you get a Torx bit. This is actually a T40, and you come up into the shaft of the ball joint, and then you have to do it up like this. It's the only way you can do it, but this is the trick here, folks, to get this when this happens, that your ball joint's spinning, is you just do it like this, and that'll bring it up nice and snug. So with the basic steering assembly all buttoned up now, it's time to put the speed sensor in. Once again, we've got that small little E10 there, and just do that up just modestly tight like that, and then we'll get the backing plate back on, and then we'll start getting everything else buttoned up. Okay, so I'll just show you, when I was putting the hanger for the disc brake caliper back on, I couldn't quite slide it past the dust shield that's come with this steering assembly. So what I've done is I've actually taken the new dust shield off, and I've put my old dust shield that was on my old steering assembly onto this steering assembly, and then the hanger slid on perfectly. So there must be just some slight differences in the manufacturing of these aftermarket dust shields. They're just not quite perfect to slide that hanger on. So we'll just get everything back together now on time lapse, but I just wanted to show you that little subtlety of what I've had to do here to make it work, folks. All right, so we've got everything back together now. The discs on, got our brake caliper on. Importantly, I've reconnected the speed sensor, and I've just tucked the wiring back. I'll just show you how it goes in there. So that wiring loops back behind that bracket on an angle just like that. And then we've got the brake line, and I've just grabbed another cable tie because we obviously cut that cable tie off. So now that's all looking good there. So we just have to lower the vehicle now after we put the wheel back on, tighten this nut to 250 Newton meters. We'll do that on the ground, and remember to reconnect our airmatic suspension, and we should be good to go. Okay, so we've just lowered the vehicle just to ride height, and we've actually just still left the lift just there because we've just reconnected the top of the airmatic strut and tighten that up. That's a 10mm there, and we've popped the fuse back into the fuse holder for the airmatic suspension. Pop that cover back on in a moment, but before we do anything, we're actually just going to do the final tighten of that nut on the drive shaft down to the 250 Newton meters. So that's 250 there, but the spec on that one actually says take it to 250 and then do another 45 degrees. So we're at 250, so
then to do 45 will be like that. So let's do, got to like, take it up, one like that, and we'll turn it another 45. I mean, that is damn tight. I reckon that's pretty good actually. So now that we've got everything back together, our Airmatic is hooked up. What I'll do is I'll jump into the vehicle, start the engine. Now, a little trick, sometimes if your Airmatic doesn't kick in, you just hit the raise button as if you're raising the suspension up into the four-wheel drive mode. That'll kick the pump in, the compressor in, and we'll just inflate this front left, and then we're good to go for a test drive.
So there you go, folks. I've just taken the Mercedes for a test drive with that new front steering assembly in that's got the new bearing already in it. And the noise that I was hearing, the really loud rumble from the front left, has completely gone. So I'm really happy about that. What's quite interesting is when I look at the assembly which has come off, it spins really freely. And when I lifted the vehicle, I didn't show you on camera, but there was no obvious sign that the bearing was loose at all when I tried to wobble the wheel either side to side or top to bottom. And you know, the bearing feels really good, but I suppose if you look at this steering assembly, and I will just bring you in close, you can see that it's really red. It is slightly blue, so I think it has been getting really hot. And whilst it's not apparently obvious that this assembly is broken or the bearing is damaged in any way, it clearly is, because when there's load on the vehicle, it was rumbling like crazy. As soon as you got above 10, 15 kilometers an hour, it was really, really loud. So glad that we've got that on there today. I think that part with the bearing already in that assembly has made that job so much easier as a DIY. I'll put an Amazon link where you can get that yourself, and really do hope that you've liked this video. So if you have liked the video, as I say, give us a like and drop us a comment down below. It's truly appreciated. And in the future, if you're interested in learning more about DIY maintenance and servicing on your Mercedes ML class, I've got something like 80 videos now on this W164 chassis showing you how to do different jobs, servicing and repairs like we've done today. So check those out, put the playlist in. And also on the channel, we feature a number of other vehicles. We've got the Audi A3, Mazda 3, we've got an early Ford Falcon, occasionally there's a little Holden Barina pop in, Holden Rodeo the other day, and in the future we're going to have a bit of BMW Z4 content. So there is really something for everybody on the channel. But as I say, folks, until next time, have a good evening.